Hey, good afternoon, everyone. I got the go-ahead to get started here. This is Empowering Your Security Culture, room B2. If you're in the wrong place, no offense if you want to get up and get to the right place. We're going to talk about your security culture, how to improve your security culture, how to keep your products in place, how to keep your people in a better secure space. Basically empowering your security posture within your organization and your personal life. I am Lynn Soeth, Manager of Security Services at HiPoCON Networks. I am very lucky to be able to keep the hurdles out of the way for our network penetration testers and vulnerability assessment guys. We also do security planning exercises, we do tabletop exercises, we do incident response plan building. We've got all kinds of things that we do in the security framework, gap analysis, gap assessments, web application assessments as well. I've been with HiPoCON since 2015 out of the Detroit Lakes, Minnesota office, and I'm very happy to be here today talking to you about security. Basically, I like to put security in a cycle, and you and your company or your personal home, personal life can jump into the security cycle anywhere in the cycle. But it goes in a cycle. There's some things that you need to do and you need to repeat because that security architecture out there in the security landscape changes often. So basically, the security cycle, you start with some type of a security framework, some type of a plan, some type of assessment, some type of a, here's my direction forward. Once you've got a direction forward, you're going to plug all those gaps. Then you're going to find out the rest of your vulnerabilities. You're going to plug the gaps again. Then you want to start testing. I know that penetration test is a buzzword in the industry, but that's your last piece in the security cycle. Get everything else rolling first. Once you do the penetration test, you're going to plug those holes again, and at that point in time, the whole security landscape has probably changed. So let's look at our framework and our plan again. Are we still going in the right direction? So the whole entire after next hour that we're talking, we're going to be working our way around the security cycle. We're going to start at the top here with the security framework assessment. And frameworks has now become another buzzword in the industry, if you haven't noticed. And actually, I think kind of replacing that pen test buzzword. If you're going to, we go to one too far? No. If you're going to do a security framework, don't go it alone. You used to be able to build a security plan on your own before. Now they've already made frameworks for you to use to build these assessments. And the frameworks are different, and you should choose the one that fits your organization the best. So for example, we're going to talk about the CIS controls. CIS is an organization that really focuses on actionable items, things for you to do as an IT director, firewall tweaks to make, edge appliance tweaks to make. CMMC is a control now that the Department of Defense is starting to enforce for anybody that produces something that makes a widget for the Department of Defense. And that includes even someone who produces the plastic that holds the missiles on the way to the helicopters where they're going to be mounted. So if you make that plastic, you are going to be required to do CMMC compliance, which is a lot of work, believe me. So that's Department of Defense. Right now it's Department of Defense. I think it will be spreading further out though, anytime you work with a government agency. And then there's NIST. NIST has framework after framework after framework. I think there's, 1,300 standards out there? The most notable one for them, though, is the cybersecurity framework. So if you look at the three of these, you want to choose one that works for you. Are you an actionable place? The CIS controls, there are 3 implementation groups. Implementation group 1 has 15 controls in it, and they call that cyber hygiene. So you want to get those 15 controls in place first before you go to IG2 or implementation group 2. And then that expands on those controls. Implementation group 3 is much more enterprise level, great place to get to, but that's something that you might want to risk rate. Do I want to spend the time and money to get there, or am I good at implementation group 2? Again, CIS is actionable items for you to take. So control number 1 in CIS, establish and maintain a detailed asset inventory. Don't care how you do that, spreadsheet, database, AD, wherever you can find an inventory, put that together, because you can't protect what you don't know. So you got to know what you have in order to protect it. Now, good question. Well, thoughts, anyone? Can I get to the okay? No? Ah, okay. All right. We'll see if that happens again. Where were we? Here we are. Safeguard number 2. Address unauthorized assets. If you have something that bops onto your network that doesn't belong there, or I'm a random person, I run in and I plug something into your network, will your network detect that? So the controls are actionable items giving you specific directions. Great set of controls. CIS is an organization, a worldwide organization of security people just like you guys who want to contribute to the controls. They're very active. Right now the controls are in version 8 and they are working on version 9. So they're very good at staying ahead of what's going on in the security world. I like these a lot for action items. What can go with them is that CMMC control. So CMMC is very policy-based. If you don't have a lot of policies, you might want to look at this one because it's going to direct you to create some policies and share them with people. Level 1 is basic. It's a self-assessment every year that you have to do. Level 2 gets a little more complicated. Level 3, you'll only be certified by the government if you ever have to get to that level. And whatever entity of the government that you are working with, they will tell you what level you have to get to. Which is all very cool if you're making a product. The thing for all of us in the room to know is, if we handle any of the data for that product, if you back up something for that product, if you handle any data that involves that product whatsoever, you as a supply chain person or you as an IT person also have to be CMMC compliant. So this is something to keep on your radar. They're starting to enforce it in October of this year. It's been many years in the coming, but it sounds like it's actually going to come into place now. You got some nodding of the head back there, yep. Are you doing some CMMC stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah. How's it been?
It's a long process, right? You have to get certified for a year. They have to get cybersecurity certifications as well.
It's complicated. It is a 6 to 12 month just to get to the basic level 1 is what they're saying. So something to keep on your radar if you do anything with the Department of Defense. However, as I said, I think that's going to spread. Department of Health and Human Resources is already starting to talk about implementing CMMC as well. They're trying to make sure that they're controlled unclassified information. So essentially any PII information that they give you or any documentation or technical specifications that they give you is protected within your network. They're trying to guarantee that for themselves. They've got a lot of rules and regulations around that, so be cognizant of this even if you don't do something with the government entities. NIST, CSF, Cybersecurity Framework, another very, very common one. There should be, no, the whole slide deck has just stopped. Oh. Apologize for the technical difficulties. There we go. I knew there were some colors on this slide somewhere. So the cybersecurity framework from NIST is another very popular one. It is also very policy heavy. So again, it dovetails well with CIS controls. Create your policy and then use the CIS controls if you need to get yourself. Thank you for your smirking over there, Watson. So, thank you. So essentially, this has a specific framework in a way that it says, again, it looks at govern, which is policy-centric, right? How do you know what you're governing? Policy, accept your risk. What's your risk appetite? Have a risk acceptance policy. Cybersecurity, supply chain management. You need some policies in place. Then you're going to identify your assets. You're going to do a risk assessment based on the policy that you put in place. You're going to figure out how to protect your assets. You have to detect what's going on within your network. Eventually, you're going to do an incident response. There we go. Are we back? Okay. All right, incident response. Once you're gonna, if you have a bad day, this gives you policies and ideas on how to respond to that. Once you respond to an incident, you're gonna have to recover and mop up the mess. So this gives you policies and actionable items to do those types of things. So kind of 3 different frameworks that use the one that would make the most sense to you and your organization. Once we get into that, we've got our framework, we've got our policy, we're gonna do some remediation. And HiPoint Networks can help you with each of the circles on this. In this particular circle set, the blue circles are the cybersecurity team. We can help you with that. That's my team. The red circles are our systems team, our UC team, our network team, our smart services teams. We can help you with all of the remediation pieces, depending on what you want to remediate. And there should be a big blue box here. This is fun. So if you're going to go through a remediation project, you've got the CIS controls, that's your framework, we're gonna plug the holes. Spreadsheets are very old school in this case. This is kind of the new innovative platforms that are out there that will help you keep track of whatever framework you chose. It's gonna tell you how well you're doing in each of the controls. In this case, CIS1, we're 100% done. CIS Control 2, which was inventory and control of software assets, we're 75% there. Using these platforms nowadays, you can put your policies in there and track your policies. You can assign tasks so that I need you to go update and patch the server. I need you to update the firewall. Those are all tasks within this platform, and they can email the tasks out with reminders. So consider platforms now, and we can help you find if there are a few of them out there to help you get your framework going and get your security controls in place. While you're doing your platform, you're going to need some policies. What type of policies do you need? Acceptable use policy, get those policies out there, tell your people what to do. What should they be doing? People want to do the right thing, so clearly tell them what the right thing is. Policies don't have to be complicated. They can be bulleted lists. Just simple, do this, don't do this. Don't put company information into ChatGPT. That's a bullet item on everybody's AI policy, right? Password or passphrase policies. Passwords, great. Get your company members thinking towards passphrases, 16 characters or more. Put standard words together. Uppercase, lowercase, all of those things are nice, but not necessary if you can at least get to a 15-character passphrase. Look around the room as you're making your passphrase. I've got projector, exit, white, black. Those passphrases are not going to be cracked in an easy fashion whatsoever. And since you're going to have a different passphrase for everything that you do, you're going to need a password manager to keep those safe. And you know what? If you have a grandma and she's writing everything down in her little black book, her little password book, that's okay. But keep that password book safe like you keep your wallet safe. Don't let anybody else get to it. But if grandma wants to write them down, just keep them safe. AI policy, again, this is so important right now. AI is huge. Have a policy, whether that's in your acceptable use policy or a separate one, so your users know what to do with AI. What are you allowing them as a company to do? Can they put company information in? Can they use AI at work? If they're not using it at work, if that's your policy is no, they're using it at home. So I suggest you figure out some way to bring that together. Data policies, data handling, data retention, data destruction. Think about how long do you want to keep moldy data around? If you are breached, how much data do you want to give away? Do you want attorneys going through 6 years of data or 3 years of data? Do you have data retention legal standards? That's something to know. Otherwise, get rid of data as soon as you can. And don't think about just electronic data. How are we erasing that? But do we have paper shredders? Do people know to shred paper? Do people know how to really delete a piece of data? So something to think about there. Social media policies, can they post anything about work? Physical security, who can come into the building? And then last but certainly not least, have an incident response plan that at least provides a framework as to who is making decisions. You can have playbooks on the side as to what you're going to do to bring yourself back, but you need a framework that says, here's my incident commander, here's my logistics chief, here's the person that's going to bring pizza to all you guys that are working 24 hours if you have a breach. Defining the people that are going to be helping you recover would be the biggest thing in your incident response plan. And then we can't forget about the people. So we've talked about products, we've talked about policies, and now maybe the hardest one here is people, right? We need to train them as to what phishing looks like, some type of cyber education on a regular basis. And even if the training seems not so good or easy, or that's a topic that everybody should know, that's okay. At least you're putting security top of mind for them once a month, once a week, once a quarter, whatever you decide. I kind of like once a month right now, but up to you. A quick 5-minute video of some sort every month is not a lot. Have a consistent message within your organization. This is what we do for security. Here's our policy. Encourage conversation, because that helps create a wonderful security culture. It's okay to ask that silly question. And do they know who they can go ask that silly question to? This just restarted, so let's not stop the conversation, though, based on technology, all right? I do have a printed set of my slides. You might not be able to see anything, but at least we can move forward while this is rebooting. Don't we all love technology? Relatively quickly back up. We were talking about the security culture, though, and finding someone, that one or two people within the organization that makes security fun, that people are comfortable going to and talking to, asking that silly question, making sure that people know your your wire transfer policy, right? Your accounting team needs to know that just because I send them an email and say, please wirelessly transfer this money, does not mean that they should. Those policies and those types of things need to be in place. Is this going to come back up on screen for us? Okay. Okay, sounds good. And actually, we're going to start with the Chrome browser next. I'm going to take that back. I have to get the link out of the PowerPoint in order to get you guys to where you need to be in the browser. My apologies for this. Oh, maybe. I don't have to. The next thing that we are going to do is I have a question for you, actually. And you've got QR codes around the room, and there will be a QR code potentially that might come up here. Is There we go. We already have people answering. So we have the question. If you want to grab one of the QR codes around the room, you should be able to scan them. There's one on each corner. With your phone, and answer the question. In a study done by security.org, what percentage of people use curse words in their passwords? Can you get to those QR codes? Is that all working? Pardon? Depending if it's Monday or not? I like that.
I never thought of that.
Right? I may be giving you ideas as to what you can do with your passwords. How are we doing? Still votes coming in? Good? Oh, 23 is running quite high. Oop. I just want to go right here. With the answer being 40%. I think I told somebody 60% earlier. I did. All right. My apologies. 40%. 40% of the people in the world use curse words in their passwords. So just something for you to think about next time you decide to create a password. Jump back to the PowerPoint here. I apologize for this not going as smooth as I would intend it to do. I would not have guessed that my computer would behave like this. Once we've got our framework taken care of, we've plugged all those holes, we've created new passwords with curse words in there, we are going to do a vulnerability assessment at this point in time. So a vulnerability assessment can be a network vulnerability assessment, which is going to find the vulnerabilities that you maybe didn't think of when you were doing your plan. We're going to do a vulnerability assessment of our people, which may be, I know if you're a KnowBe4 customer at all, or if you use KnowBe4, there's a security culture survey out there that you can use and get the security culture, get some feedback. If you don't have KnowBe4, there are other security culture surveys out there that you can use for your people. Get some feedback from them, get some basic testing, right? We've got an entire framework in here. And we have a computer with a mind of its own. Either way, do some type of testing, some type of vulnerability assessment within your network and within your people. With a vulnerability assessment, the basic assessment, you're there to determine the gaps that are missed in your policies and security actions. You can do internal assessments, which is going to be your internal network, all of your pieces. That would be PCs, servers, phones, fax machines, printers, all of those types of things that you want to do internally and have them scanned. External assessments, what can we get to? Generally now, your firewall is pretty locked down, but did you miss something by accident? This is really finding the things that might have been missed by accident, all of the vulnerabilities. When you're looking for a provider to do an internal and external vulnerability assessment for your network, make sure that they do vulnerabilities discovered and verified without giving you a load of false positives. Because we've got those providers out there that will run their scan, get you 115 pages of reports and just dump it in your lap and say, congratulations, here's your assessment. 50% of those may be false positives. So get somebody that will verify that. Get somebody that will write you an executive summary in plain language that you can share with a board of directors or someone in the C-suite that you need support from. Timing for these assessments. How quickly can you remediate? Because if you're going to do a vulnerability assessment now and another vulnerability assessment in 6 months, but you haven't taken any time to remediate anything in between, you're wasting your money. Please put your money where it is best used. Get that assessment, get the vulnerabilities, plug them up before you go on and do another one. Once you get a little bit more mature in your security posture, consider continuous vulnerability assessments. There are plenty of platforms. We happen to use Tenable as kind of our go-to provider for this, that will do continual vulnerability assessments within your network, and that's kind of your ultimate goal out there. Get your people on board, introduce your policies now, introduce some testing, introduce that culture assessment, see how things are going with them.
I have a question, please.
Go.
So come to an assessments. So what is it like? What's the frequency? Usually we do it every year. What did you mean by that?
Yep. So the question being, how often should you do it? Usually you do them every year. Every year is good. There's nothing wrong with that. Do them as often as you can remediate findings in the middle. Because there's new things coming out every day. So as soon as you do a vulnerability assessment today, that's a snapshot in time. That's not protecting you tomorrow. So if you can do an assessment today, fix your remediations in 3 months, get another assessment rolling in 3 months. But if you can do your assessment today, you're a small one-person IT shop, and it takes you 6 months to do those remediations, get another scan in 6 months. Spend your time and your efforts fixing things before you get another scan running. I mean, I'm advocating for continuous vulnerability scanning. Don't get me wrong, but I don't want you to spend your money on assessment after assessment if you don't fix what's happening in the middle. Okay? So we've done our vulnerability assessment. Our next step again in the cycle is remediation. Common findings that we've got in vulnerability assessments: missing patches. Get a patch schedule going. That is oftentimes the biggest thing that we find. Default configurations on printers. Default configurations on cameras is another big one. So always change your default configuration, delete your default config. Stale accounts in Active Directory. What is your onboarding process, and how do you give privileges out to people? Even more important, what's your offboarding process? Does HR let you know when someone is leaving so that you can offboard them correctly and get their permissions out of Active Directory? Or even more, what happens when someone transfers within your company? If they go from accounting to marketing, do we have a pathway or policy to remove all of their accounting privileges and give them marketing privileges? Believe me, my guys find way too many privileges out there. So if you need policies in place to get rid of all of those stale counts. This follows right into the overly permissive counts. And your daily driver, do you have domain admin access on your daily driver? Please, no. Use a separate account for domain admin things. We find plain text credentials stored in shared folders. And that's not just IT that does that. So there's a good education piece for your people, your staff. And then some items you're going to risk rate, right? If you have other mitigations in place, even though they come out as a high vulnerability for you, maybe you have other things in place, and you're going to risk rate that and say, I'm accepting that vulnerability. Other considerations, using that same remediation process, people, products, and policies to remediate. Alerts are important. That's something you've got, maybe alert set up off of your firewall, Microsoft Office, whatever. Alerts are all over the place nowadays, but so is alert fatigue. So consider how that's happening, because if you're getting hundreds of alerts a day, you're not finding the right alerts to look at. So something to consider there. Sensitive data. This is the point where you want to define where in your network is your sensitive data. That's what you need to protect. That's what you need to protect the most. Get a list of that sensitive data and talk to the people in your company, because accounting might think their sensitive data is different than HR's sensitive data. And the CEO might think sensitive data is different than accounting thinks it's sensitive data. So you got everybody together talking about this. Make a list of where that sensitive data is, because you can concentrate your most secure portions of your network on that sensitive data then. The other part of that list is, if you have a bad day, one of the first things a forensics company is going to ask you for is, where's your sensitive data? So that they can make sure that that is okay, and then maybe that didn't leave the network during a breach. So important to have that. We're doing continuous education and communication for your people now. Phishing, smishing, vishing, defining that, giving them opportunities to see that on a regular basis. Phishing campaigns aren't gotchas. They're education for people so that they know what happens when the real thing comes about. Things like how to validate your help desk personnel. When we do phishing, I can tell you that the guys will call in. Hey, I'm Microsoft Tech Support. Your IT director, Joe, said you're having problems with your computer. We need to change your password. Can you please log in for me? I'll give you a web page to go to log in, put your credentials in. Do your people know how to validate whether you did that or not? Would they be smart enough to call you and validate that you have Microsoft call me? Is there a comfortable security culture where people would think about doing that, about communicating that to you? Think about those types of things. Oh, and when should you buy gift cards? When the CEO texts you and said, hey, I need a gift card for XYZ by 3 o'clock today. Can you please go buy those? Scratch off the codes in the back and text them to me. So educating your people on all of these types of things is very important. And just keeping it top of mind. Everybody has a bad day. Everybody is tired on a Monday morning, or not thinking about work anymore on a Friday afternoon. So it's easy to have a bad day and make a quick mistake that could cost you. Now that we've done that remediation, we are ready for the penetration test at this point in time. We do penetration testing. If you have any web applications, you should be testing your web applications. If you do any wireless, you should be having wireless testing as well. If we come in and set up a rogue wireless access point that's just one letter off from your wireless network, how many of your employees will connect to that? Is always a good question. And then as well as just testing any potential defects within your wireless setup. Penetration test, we use scanning tools, so somebody should be scanning your network. OSINT, we're going to be looking on the internet to see what we can find out about you and your company, as well as manual assessments. They need to do manual things once the scanning tools run. Again, we've talked about internal assessments, external assessments, phishing. Credential theft is huge. If you're doing any type of an external pen test, make sure you get a phishing campaign in there, because that's generally where we get our credentials to move within the network. Again, making sure you've got some prioritized results that come in and an executive summary. Don't let them just hand you that 130-page report and walk away. You need someone that's going to interpret that for you and help to determine what should be done at the top of the list. Just a few things that we have found on penetration tests. I always find this interesting when the guys are busy to see what types of things they found. Web application test, who would have thought a least privileged users could change the email address for admin users? If you could figure out an email address of anybody that was using that particular web application platform, you could request a password reset to any email address, therefore changing the password for admin users. Configuration you probably didn't think about when you were setting up the web application test. Did a penetration test and found the domain admin password in the description field of the account. Little things that maybe we did 15 years ago, right? That were more acceptable then, that just keep going forward and have stayed out there forever. Did a penetration test and we found some plain text passwords and group policies. We fished a user for credentials when one, pivoted through the network and got to their SCADA or their production network. And that was a biofuels enterprise, biofuels production company. KnowBe4 was in use. So KnowBe4 is not the end all be all, but we fished the user, got the credentials and moved on through. Let's see. Service provider with a large customer base. We found a SQL injection that leaked passwords for all of their users, including their customers. And then we did a privilege escalation through a vulnerable certificate template that they found. And they got domain admin access through that. So there are things that you wouldn't think about, which is why vulnerability assessments and penetration tests are important. I know that you guys know what you're doing, but sometimes those little things that we don't think about can catch us up. Once we do the penetration test, you're getting tired of hearing me say this, but it's remediation time again, right? Plug the holes that were found. And so this particular remediation piece is same type of thing. People, products, processes, right? So let's go on. According to the 2025 Verizon Data Breach Report, what percentage of data breaches involved a human element? Is it open for voting? We got one in. More coming? You guys are really going for that 60% out there, aren't you? We good? Let's get the answer. The crowd knows best. 60% of data breaches involve some type of human element. Not really surprising, is it? Because we can configure firewalls to be very secure. We configure our cloud products to be very secure. Our humans, like I said, it's one bad day. It's one tired response. And unfortunately, that can let the bad guys in. So again, using the Verizon Database Breach Report from 2025, credential abuse, which actually came up this year. It was higher this year than ever before. So credential abuse is all of a sudden phishing. You give away your password, they use those credentials and figure out how to move around within your network. So that overprivileged account plays into this as well, into that credential abuse, right? So it often overlaps with phishing or pretexting. I'll give you a pretexting story for when we were online, or on site at one point in time. We were tasked to get inside of this happened to be an electricity producing company. We were tasked to, a co-op essentially. We were tasked to get inside the building and pass their initial security, which was sign in, right? They had an iPad there, you had to sign in, provide ID if you were visiting, and so we were tasked to get beyond that. What our pen tester did is he simply, from the hotel in the morning, called the front desk and said, hey, I'm your printer company. Your printer is throwing an error. It looks like it needs toner, but I'm not sure that's the error. I'll be there in about 15 minutes. So just, if you can let me back to the printer, that would be good. Hangs up, sure enough. He walks up to the door about 15 minutes later with an empty toner box under his arm. She escorts him beyond the iPad, beyond all security processes, puts him back there at the printer, where he plugs in all kinds of little toys that he has. I call it a zoo. They've got little rubber duckies and all different things that they use. And he gathered all of the network traffic that was coming to that printer, including payroll records. There was some customer information. He then went into a conference room and sat down, opened up his laptop, grabbed the IP phone off, or the IP of the telephone in the room, quickly got onto the network and was surfing the network in a conference room that was all four glass sides, people walking by him continually. No one questioned him. He finally called it off at about noon and talked to the IT guy and said, I've been here for about 3 hours now, no one's questioning me, and I have all this traffic off of your printer. So pretexting story there, right? Because we're all very helpful. We want to be helpful people. We want to help whoever is there. So cautionary tale there. Web applications, emails are certainly targets. Errors that we commonly see, misdelivery of electronic or paper data. Have you ever typed in the wrong email address and sent somebody the wrong information? Happens. publishing errors, social interactions, prompt bombing. That is the one thing about MFA, right? Is that come into your phone, and if you continue to get a prompt, that's what they will do. They'll just continue to prompt you in, prompt you in, prompt you in. And if you accidentally hit yes, or you hit yes because you're tired of seeing all the prompts, you've let them in. Some things to be, bribery, of course, is up there as well. Typical target, HiPoint's best customer, a small to medium business. If they're targeting, realize they're just scanning the web, trying to find a missing patch, an open firewall, something, anything. Those aren't targets. They're just scanning. And sometimes what they'll do is they'll get access into your environment, and then they'll sell that on the black web or on the dark web, wherever, whatever selling places they have. Because they're not interested in going any further, but maybe you're of interest to someone else. So they'll pay $20,000 to be already in your network and then go from there. So it's not even necessarily the person that first got in that is going to be the person that targets you going forward. We are back to the top of the security cycle here, which means it's time to relook at those frameworks, time to relook at your policies, time to relook at your acceptable use policy. Is there anything besides AI that needs to be in there? Review all those things and start this over again. If you've been doing penetration testing regularly, you can skip that vulnerability assessment piece. But if you can get to that continual vulnerability assessment, right, there's always those 0 days out there that you have to worry about. And that continuous testing is going to catch those. So, what can you do for yourself in the security framework assessment world here? You're reviewing your plan and figure out how to stay abreast of the industry information. I'm going to tell you, don't count on HiPoint Networks to do that for you, because we don't know exactly every product that you've got. We'll post occasional social media posts when we see a 0 day or something important, but go to the manufacturers of your equipment, sign up for their alerts. Another really good place is CISA.org. Will let you sign up for whatever you want. You get to control what type of information comes into your email inbox. And that's a free service that they offer, all quick and easy. And again, you control what comes to your inbox. And they're very good about what they send. It's usually 1 email a day, sometimes 1 email a week. So you don't get completely bombarded, and you know that you should watch what's going on there. So finding a trusted source for vulnerability notifications is very important. Alerts from manufacturers is very important. Keeping yourself informed is very important.